What's up, friends, family, and my fellow sufferers? It's your boy Danny, fresh in the flesh, making it all make sense on YouTube's most criminally underrated channel. If this is your first time here and you think you might be interested in nutritional theory, weightlifting, postural restoration, the skeptical philosophy of Pyrrho, existential psychology, existential philosophy, theology, the principles of post-Keynesian economics, and what happens when I take all those ideas and throw them into the blender on high speed? Consider making me your YouTube homie. Just remember while you're watching, if you dig the vibe, like and subscribe. Alright, before we get started today, I'm going to show you a couple of things that got me thinking about panda bears. First up is a little clip from Mike the Vegan to kick things off.
Virtually everybody believes that we are omnivores because they themselves are behavioral omnivores. But just because somebody eats meat does not make them an omnivore. Take an animal that is an undisputed carnivore, the cat. Talking about boring vegan foods, the cat eats grass in the wild, and if you have one, you know they love cat grass. So by this logic, cats should be omnivores because they often eat plants, but we deem them carnivores nonetheless, which is a double standard.
Secondly, I was browsing Quora and came across this question. Is it possible that humans are facultative herbivores and not omnivores? One of the answers to the question said, dietary categories are determined by observed behavior, not physiological arrangement. Humans have been determined to be omnivores for more than 2 million years ago until today, so we are considered omnivores regardless of what we are adapted to. See the difference? What you're saying is that we should base dietary categories on physiology, which wouldn't work very well at times. That would mean that the panda is now a carnivore, which it very clearly isn't. Get what I'm saying? All of that together got me thinking, are panda bears just carnivores in denial? 3 minutes on the clock. Mike the Vegan makes the suggestion that since, in his opinion, human beings aren't anatomically and physiologically adapted for meat eating, and yet we classify ourselves as omnivores, it's hypocritical to classify cats who occasionally eat grass as obligate carnivores. Cats eat grass, but they don't really extract any nutritional value from the undertaking. That doesn't mean that their grass-eating behavior is not serving some other useful function like, facilitating digestion or providing them pleasure. After all, we eat medicines, psychoactive drugs, communion wafers, digestive aids, and plenty of other things for plenty of other reasons that aren't exactly nutritional.
Herbivore, omnivore, and carnivore are classifications, and the fun thing about classifications is they're man-made. So where does one start and one stop?
What he fails to realize, however, is that our arbitrary classification schemes often blind us to important similarities and differences between the things that we're classifying. The usually attempted human solution to this problem is ever more refined classification all the way down to the level of the infamous species. Eventually, you come face to face with the startling fact that you can never get to the thing in itself.
Ding an sich.
Even the infamous species has no genuinely proper name.
Whenever you speak about an individual, you're forced to talk about it using non-individual universal terms that can be properly employed across any of the artificial boundaries of the ultimately arbitrary classification scheme you've been erecting. Sadly, this very astute and very accurate observation about the problem of universals and classification and all of the implications have not sufficiently worked their way into all of Mike's thinking on the subject like it has into mine.
Where does an omnivore turn into a herbivore? Is it 95% plants, 99% plants? But the question is, what ratio is best for humans?
When you ask the wrong questions like he does, you get the wrong answers like he does. Why do vegans have to frame things in such a black and white fashion? Maybe the real question is there only one best ratio?
What Mike does here is what children do. Children think in absolutes and platonic essences rather than in Heraclitean fluxes. Fluxa? Fluxum? Because children are incapable of tolerating any ambiguity. And because they're teeny little tyrants who are eager to issue commandments to other people. If you want a set of highly restrictive and ultimately arbitrary commandments, go join a religion. Okay, now imagine a panda bear asking Mike the Vegan if pandas are better adapted for omnivory or herbivory. I think even Mike would acknowledge that a panda bear is indisputably capable of and well adapted for meat eating. I think most vegans would. Why don't pandas eat meat? The issues surrounding the umami taste receptor are incredibly complex, and we don't have time to delve into them today. All you need to know is that the consensus on the matter is that pandas, some point in time, lost the gene that codes for the umami taste receptor and consequently cannot taste the umami in meat. Therefore, they lost interest in meat. What you also need to know is that pandas are not well adapted for digesting bamboo. This is why pandas spend up to 14 hours a day eating up to 30 pounds of bamboo, of which they only properly digest about 6 pounds. So how do I define well adapted in the context of human nutrition? The same way that I define it for pandas. The better adapted an animal is to its diet, the less that it has to eat of its diet to obtain or satisfy its nutritional requirements. When a creature is well adapted to its diet, it is maximizing its digestive efficiency without developing any nutritional deficiencies and/or any acute or chronic illnesses. A human being whose diet is primarily composed of wheat, rice, beans, nuts, and fibrous roughage is not doing as well at satisfying these criteria as someone who eats a diet in which animal products figure more prominently. A human being living off of a diet that they are less well adapted to is an awful lot like a cat living off of grass or a panda bear living off of bamboo. An interesting ethical question for vegans is, should human beings fix or restructure the panda genome by restoring the gene that codes for the umami taste receptor so that pandas can eat an ancestrally and anatomically consistent diet? The question, contra Mike the vegan, for human beings is not which ratio is best for humans, but rather which ratio is best for an individual human being in light of their own personal philosophies, their goals, and the context in which they find themselves operating in. So what do we know? We know that panda bears don't eat meat, not because they're carnivores in denial, but because they lack a functional gene that codes for the umami taste receptor. We know that human beings have a functional umami taste receptor. We know human beings can live exclusively on animal products without developing any nutritional deficiencies or any acute or chronic illnesses because they are well adapted for animal products. We know that human beings can do the same thing with plant products and a few supplements, but that they are not as well adapted to it. We also know, lastly, that what something or somebody should eat is a highly loaded question that avoids the complicated reality of the ultimately arbitrary nature of all classification schemes. Hey, thanks for sticking around. You must have really enjoyed the video if you did. So, do your boy Danny a solid and leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the subject. What you liked about the video, what you didn't like about the video, and what other subjects you want to see me handle and take down in 3 minutes in the future. It's your boy Danny reminding you that you are beautiful, capable, and strong, which means that you are good enough for whatever slings, arrows, and outrageous fortune fate cooks up and sends your way. And you're going to stay that way because you are going to eat meat and move weight. Chuck-a-deuce!